Welcome back, and thank you for tuning into Midnight Affairs Tales. We appreciate every single one of you. We'd love to know what part of the world you are watching from right now. Let us know in the comments. Now let's dive into today's story, Chapter 1. She just called my war story content. I stared at the laptop screen, frozen. Claire's voice rang through the packed auditorium, every word delivered like a script she had rehearsed 100 times. My husband came home from Afghanistan broken. There were nights he would scream so loudly, I had to sleep in the garage. But I stayed. I held him through the darkness. I saved him. The audience stood. Thunderous applause. People cried. Some even threw roses onto the stage. Claire wiped a tear from her cheek, one I now knew was rehearsed. That TED Talk had over 6 million views in 3 days. She had turned my trauma into a standing ovation. And the worst part? I had no idea she was going to do it. There was no call, no conversation, no request for permission. Just a notification from an old military buddy. Hey man, is this your wife? What the hell is this? I watched the entire thing twice. Every sentence twisted my gut tighter. She spoke about nights I could not even remember. She described our battles, when in reality, I fought most of them alone. Her words were coated in empathy, but they were poison. She ended with a mic drop line. If I can heal a soldier, imagine what you can do. I shut the laptop slowly. This woman had turned my scars into her stage, my nightmares into a business pitch. And my silence? That was the permission she thought she had earned. I sat back in the kitchen chair, blinking at the empty coffee cup in front of me. Everything was quiet except the rush of blood in my ears. My wife, the woman I trusted with my vulnerability, had exploited it. And she was being celebrated for it. She thought she had won. She thought the world would never see behind the curtain. She was wrong, because I was done being quiet. And I was done being used. Before we move ahead, I just want to say, your support truly means everything. We're building something special here, and our next big goal is reaching 10,000 incredible subscribers. If you're feeling the emotions in these stories, imagine what's still to come. Subscribe now, be part of this amazing journey, and let's keep growing together. Your one click can make a real difference. Let's continue the story. Claire was not always like this. Back when I met her, she was working at a nonprofit for veterans, fresh out of grad school with big eyes and an even bigger heart. Or at least that is what I believed. She volunteered to help guys like me transition back into civilian life. She listened. She cried when I told her about the things I had seen. She even came with me to a few VA group sessions. I thought she understood. When we got married, it was small. Just a backyard ceremony, me in a suit that barely fit right, her in a dress she found at a consignment shop. She said she did not care about big crowds. Said she only wanted love, not attention. Now, she stood in front of thousands, lighting up like she was born for the spotlight. And I could not help but wonder, was that woman always inside her? Was it real, or was it all just a very long con? The morning after the TED Talk dropped, Claire walked into the kitchen like nothing had happened. "Morning, babe," she said, kissing my head. "Did you sleep okay?" I looked up at her. I wanted to scream, to ask her why. But something inside me told me to wait. She poured herself coffee, scrolling through her phone. I watched her smile grow as the notification pings came in. Her agent, her sponsor, a producer from a national network. "Oh my God. This is insane," she said. "I think I might get on the morning shift. Can you believe that?" She laughed. I did not. Instead, I nodded. Because I needed time. Time to see how deep the rabbit hole went. Time to figure out who the hell I was actually married to. That evening, I watched the TED Talk again, this time with a pen and notepad. I paused every 30 seconds and wrote down what was true and what was twisted. There were more lies than facts. She would whisper me out of my panic attacks. She was in New York that week for a seminar. She held me when I collapsed in the shower. That never happened. She carried my pain with dignity. No. She rolled her eyes when I had to cancel plans because I had a bad night. Every line was a performance. Every gesture, calculated. Even her wardrobe, muted tones, no jewelry, soft lipstick. The victim supporter image was crafted with marketing precision. When she said, "I learned to love the broken parts of him," I paused the video. She had never said that to me. Not once. What she did say, when I had my first panic attack in the middle of Target, was, "You are embarrassing me, Jack." And that was when I realized Claire had rewritten our marriage into a screenplay and cast herself as the savior. But this was not a love story. It was exploitation. I looked up her itinerary. She had a keynote in San Diego in 2 weeks. Live streamed. Sponsored by a major tech company. One of her biggest yet. I smiled for the first time in days. Because I knew exactly where her script would end. And I was going to write the final scene. At exactly 2:11 a.m., I heard her phone vibrate. 3 times. Then silence. I turned over in bed. Claire was asleep beside me, breathing slow and steady. Her phone screen lit up again on the nightstand. Another message. I reached for it. She always left it face up. That was her first mistake. The screen showed a preview. Miles Tanner, that line about carrying his war chills. "You were perfect, babe." I stared at the message, my pulse pounding in my ears. Miles. Not her agent. Not her brother. Not a coworker. Babe. I opened the thread. Messages lined up like bullets in a clip. "You inspire me so much. Watching you talk about your husband's trauma, the way you own it. God, I love you. Jack has no idea, right? You are the most powerful woman I have ever met." Attached was a photo. A mirror selfie of Claire in a hotel robe. The timestamp? Last Thursday. She told me she was at a women's empowerment panel in Denver. I put the phone down slowly, like it might explode. I did not yell. I did not shake her awake. Instead, I stared at the ceiling, my chest hollowing out with every breath. This was not just about betrayal anymore. This was about design. Claire had been manufacturing this persona. She was not just cheating with a man. She was cheating with my pain. And she was using both of us. The next morning, I played dumb. Claire poured herself a smoothie, humming some pop song like we were in a toothpaste commercial. She wore the same silk robe from the photo. I wanted to vomit. "Do you have any gigs next week?" I asked, acting casual. She sipped her drink. "San Diego. Big keynote. Mental health and leadership and trauma. Going to be huge." She winked. Another 15 minutes of saving the world. I smiled. It was the most dangerous thing I had ever done. Later that day, I made copies. Every message. Every picture. I backed up her phone's cloud. I accessed her drive, thanks to a password she never changed. Everything she had written for the talk? Labeled and indexed. It read like a playbook. Speech titles. "How I Healed a Warrior," "My Husband's Nightmares Made Me Brave," bullet points underneath. Insert emotional beat about blood on hands. Use Afghanistan explosion story. Add detail if needed. Cry at minute 12. It was not storytelling. It was scripted marketing abuse. Claire was not just telling my story. She was inventing it, decorating it, and selling it like a movie trailer. And the worst part? People loved it. I kept digging. One folder in her drive was labeled B-roll raw cuts. It was video footage, rehearsals, mock interviews, unedited takes. I clicked the first file. Claire was sitting on a couch, speaking to camera. When Jack came home, he barely knew who I was. But I held him. I read to him. I reminded him every day he was loved. Then she dropped character and looked at the director. "That part good? Do I need to cry earlier?" Maybe at line 3, a voice off-screen replied. "Try breaking when you say he barely knew me." Claire nodded. "Got it." She cleared her throat, recentered her expression. When Jack came home, he barely knew who I was. Now her voice trembled, eyes wet. A flawless performance. I sat there frozen, watching the woman I married workshop my pain like she was prepping for an Oscar campaign. Video after video played. Claire analyzing emotional beats, perfecting micro-expressions. She even corrected a director who misremembered a story. No. The first panic attack was in our kitchen, not the car, she said. Except it was never in the kitchen. It was on a rainy freeway, when a blown tire sounded like a roadside bomb, and I pulled over screaming. She was not even there. I slammed the laptop shut. I had seen enough. I had given her my soul. She turned it into a keynote package. And now? Now I was going to give her something too. Not another story. A reckoning. The next day, I sat in my truck in front of the old VA hospital. I had not been here in over a year. The last time I stepped through those doors, I was still trying to explain nightmares I could barely remember and pain I could not locate. Now I was here for something else. Jack Callahan, the receptionist said, checking me in with a polite smile. You still seeing Dr. Monroe? Yes, I said, though this time I was not here for therapy. I was here for clarity. Dr. Monroe met me with the same calm demeanor she always had. Mid-50s, calm brown eyes, always in earth-tone sweaters. Jack, she said, motioning to the couch. I did not expect you back so soon. How are things at home? I sat down slowly. Doctor, did Claire ever ask you anything about my treatment without me knowing? She blinked, surprised. She reached out a few times, she said carefully. She said she wanted to support your healing. Asked me questions about what triggers to avoid, how to speak gently during flashbacks. My jaw tightened. Did she ever ask you for details? Like what exactly happened to me over there? Dr. Monroe paused. Once, I told her I could not share anything specific without your consent. She said it was for her book, that it was going to help wives understand what their husbands could not say out loud. I felt the air drain from my lungs. She took everything I gave her in trust. I muttered, and made it a performance. Dr. Monroe's eyes softened. Jack, I am very sorry. If I had known, you could not have, I said quietly. But now I know. When I left, the sky outside was heavy with clouds, like the weather itself was holding back something. I was not just a husband anymore. I was a target that had been exploited, and I was done playing the passive one. Claire suggested dinner that night at her favorite rooftop restaurant downtown. She said she wanted to celebrate the momentum. I agreed, because now I needed to see her, really see her, with this new lens. She showed up in a sleek black dress, heels sharp enough to kill, her hair tied up in a perfect twist. She looked like a movie version of herself. Look who finally decided to be social, she teased, sitting across from me. I forced a grin. Just wanted to spend some time with my favorite rising star. She laughed, waving the waiter over. I had a call with Miles today, she said casually. He says the San Diego talk is going to be a game changer. Major sponsors, press, maybe even a documentary crew. Miles, I repeated, pretending to think. Is he the bald guy with the BMW? Claire's smile flickered. Yeah, you met him at that fundraiser last year. I nodded slowly. Right. Real charming guy. Got a good sense of timing. She narrowed her eyes slightly but covered it with another sip of wine. I mean, I added, leaning forward, he seems like someone who really gets you. Claire chuckled, but her eyes were watching me now. Jack, what is this? Are you jealous? I shrugged. Should I be? She rolled her eyes. Oh my God, do not be ridiculous. You know how important these connections are. Miles has been incredibly supportive. Supportive? Right. I stared at her across the candlelight and suddenly felt nothing. No warmth. No resentment. Just cold distance. You deserve all the credit, I said calmly. Everything you have built, it is impressive. Claire smiled again, this time with full teeth. But she had no idea what I was building, and it was going to bury her. That night, back at home, I went to the garage and opened the old fireproof box I had buried under storage bins for years. Inside were my deployment journals, encrypted flash drives, and a photo. Me and my unit in Kandahar, smiling before a mission we never fully returned from. I plugged in one of the drives. It had video clips I had taken with a body cam. Rough footage. Loud, shaky reel. The things Claire talked about in her speeches, she had dramatized them, reshaped them. Now I had the real thing. I copied the files to a new encrypted folder. Then I called Ethan. He was a former squad mate, now in cyber investigations. We had not talked in months, but I knew he would answer. Jack. His voice cracked through the phone. Man, it has been a while. Everything okay? Not really, I said. I need help. Digital trace, secure storage, clean distribution. I'm going to blow up a lie, and I need it airtight. Ethan was silent for a second. Send me the files. You are not doing this alone. And just like that, the pact was made. This was not going to be a confrontation. This was going to be a controlled detonation. And Claire would never see it coming. It was 3:47 a.m. when I found it. A voice memo tucked inside a folder named Post-Press Debrief, hidden beneath photos, press kits, and spreadsheets. She must have recorded it by accident. The playback began with light laughter. Her voice, breathy from wine. Another voice, Miles Tanner's, low and smug. You were incredible tonight, he said. Claire giggled. I told you. They ate it up. You almost had me crying, and I know the story is fake. She laughed louder. Parts of it are real. But Jack has no idea I rewrote half of it. His memory is so foggy from the meds. I could say he fought dragons, and he would probably believe it. Miles, you are a genius. Trauma is like gold if you know how to mine it. Claire, and Jack is my gold mine. The silence that followed felt heavier than any explosion I had heard in combat. I replayed it. Once. Twice. The third time, I pressed record on my own device and captured every second. Her voice, the same one that used to whisper, I love you during my panic attacks, was now soaked in betrayal. I sat there in the dark, breathing through my nose, eyes fixed on the laptop screen, fingers clenched into fists. No anger, just precision. I uploaded the audio into the secure drive Ethan and I were building. Named it Strike One. 3 more like it, and the plan would be bulletproof. Send me her cloud access, Ethan said the next morning. If she used the same login she used in 2019, I can be in within the hour. I hesitated. Will this leave a trace? Not unless she is a lot smarter than I think she is, he said dryly. I gave him the details. Within 40 minutes, I had a ping. Access granted. Inside Claire's digital world was a vault of ego. Press kits, mock interviews, promotional reels. But what mattered most were the hidden folders, backups, duplicates, discarded versions of speeches that never aired. One folder stood out. Private. Miles/untouched. Inside were text threads, voice memos, draft emails. If I can pivot to full-time advocacy, we could hit the 7-figure mark. Jack will not know. He is still half-broken. And he owes me everything anyway. God, imagine the Netflix pitch. Ethan whistled over the phone. You married a monster, man. She is worse, I said. She thinks she is the victim. We compiled everything. Labeled it. Timestamped it. Built a timeline from her first public gig to the most recent leak. Every file I saved felt like loading another round into the chamber. I was not just preparing for a confrontation. I was preparing for detonation. 2 days later, I met with Dr. Monroe again, this time under a different pretense. I needed one more piece. Doctor, I began. Do you record any of your patient interactions for case notes? She nodded. Sometimes. For training purposes or legal protection. With consent, of course. I leaned forward. What about outside calls? Has Claire ever contacted you again in the last 6 months? She frowned. She called twice. Said she wanted advice on framing her speeches with emotional authenticity. I refused. Did you keep a record? Dr. Monroe opened a drawer, pulled out a dated file. I did. I logged both calls. And I was disturbed. She handed me a transcript. Claire, do you think talking about suicidal ideation will land better before or after the halfway mark of the talk? Claire, if I say he once curled up in a closet, it sounds raw, right? Audiences love raw. I could barely read it. Dr. Monroe watched me carefully. Jack, whatever you are planning, make sure you do it with integrity. Because she clearly has none left. I nodded. I do not want revenge, I said. I want the truth. And the world was about to get all of it. I began living 2 lives. By day, I was the supportive husband again, smiling politely, pretending to listen to Claire's rehearsals, complimenting her stage presence like nothing had changed. By night, I was building a digital arsenal. The folder now had over 70 files. Every audio clip, email thread, rehearsal video, and timestamped screenshot had been organized into a clean, chronological timeline. Ethan helped me build a mirrored backup on a military-grade encrypted drive. I called it Project Clean Cut, because once it dropped, there would be no fixing the mess she made. One afternoon, as Claire practiced her opening lines for San Diego, I filmed her with my phone from the hallway. She was rehearsing again, reciting phrases like the guilt soldiers carry, like she had lived through war herself. Pause after the word ghosts, she muttered to herself. Let them feel it. She never saw me filming. I sent it to Ethan. Stage 4 complete, he messaged back. This is going to hit like a nuke. Still, I waited. Not because I was unsure, but because I wanted her to think she had already won. She had to be standing at the peak before I pulled the ground out from under her. Chapter 14. Ghost Mode. Claire's San Diego trip was only 5 days away now. The house was buzzing with her excitement. New clothes laid across the bed, emails flying, phone calls at midnight. She barely noticed how quiet I had become. She thought I had accepted her success, that I had swallowed the betrayal, buried it beneath marriage vows and mutual history. But all I had done was disappear beneath the surface, watching, collecting, waiting. I bought a burner phone and created a secure Proton Mail account. No names. No links to me. Then I drafted the leak message. Subject line: Claire Callahan's truth. What her TED Talk will not tell you. Attached was the voice memo. Her laughing about my trauma. The video of her practicing fake tears. The email where she told Miles, his pain is my profit. I set it to send 30 minutes into her keynote. Just enough time for her to hit the emotional climax on stage, so when phones started buzzing, the fall would be immediate and brutal. I also sent a copy to the lead sponsor of the event. With proof. I did not need them to cancel her. I needed them to watch her crash. The real confrontation would not be between her and me. It would be her and the mirror. 3 nights before the event, I met Ethan downtown in a quiet bar. He slid a flash drive across the table like we were in a spy film. All encrypted, geo-blocked, and distributed. 10 outlets are sitting on the trigger file. Once the first leak drops, the others follow. I nodded. Are you ready for the fallout? He asked. This does not just destroy her career, Jack. It wrecks her entire name. I looked down at the drive. I saw what it represented. It was not vengeance. It was exposure. She built her name on my nightmares. I said, this is not about punishment. It is about pulling her mask off. He held my stare for a long second, then raised his glass. To truth, Ethan said. To silence breaking, I replied. We clinked glasses. When I got home, Claire was asleep on the couch, a glass of red wine half full on the table, laptop open with notes for her speech. I stood over her, staring at the woman I once thought would protect me from everything. Now she was the reason I needed protecting. I turned off the light, walked past her, and smiled. Because in 3 days, the stage she worshipped would become her grave. 2 days before the San Diego keynote, Ethan messaged me again. Found something you need to hear. Call me. Now. I stepped into the garage and called. You are not going to believe this, Ethan said. Remember Miles' email backups? His assistant used to archive his personal inbox on the company drive. I cracked it. What did you find? A folder titled Exit Strategy, Claire, full of voice memos, drafts of press statements, and a bullet point plan to cut her off after the San Diego event. I stared at the wall, jaw clenched. He was planning to dump her? Yup. Step 3 literally says, sever ties. Blame burnout. Walk away clean. And get this, he already transferred $200,000 from the joint account they used for the speaking tour into a separate holding company. That was not just betrayal. That was a setup. Claire was not just a user. She was being used. And she had no idea. I exhaled slowly. Send me everything. This goes in the final drop. You sure? Ethan asked. This is overkill. No, I said. It is the truth. And the truth does not negotiate. The day arrived. Claire stood in front of the mirror in our hotel suite, adjusting her blazer. She looked confident. serene, like someone about to win an award. I sat on the edge of the bed, watching her. "I hope you kill it up there," I said softly. She smiled at me in the mirror. "Thank you, babe. I know you were unsure about all this before, but it means everything that you were here." I nodded, eyes fixed on her reflection. She had no idea that the man sitting behind her was not her audience anymore. I was her ending. The convention center buzzed with people. Big screens, professional lighting, cameras at every angle. Claire's face was on banners, posters, event programs. Claire Callahan, how we heal those who served. I took my seat in the middle row, camera in my hand, burner phone in my pocket. The room dimmed. A voice echoed over the speaker system. "Please welcome our keynote speaker, Claire Callahan." She walked on stage to applause. But I did not clap. She began with a story. A powerful one. Her voice trembled just right. The lighting caught the edge of her cheekbones. She moved like a woman who had mastered her narrative. And when Jack came home, he was not my husband. He was a shadow of him. But I stayed. Every word hit harder because I knew what was coming. 15 minutes in, the timer started. I opened the burner phone, and I pressed send. At first, it was subtle. A few heads down in the audience. Phones lighting up. Thumbs pausing mid-scroll. Then came the frowns. The confusion. Whispers between colleagues. Claire kept speaking, unaware. She was deep into her monologue about the night Jack collapsed in the shower, a scene she had choreographed but that never happened. Then a woman near the front gasped. The man beside her turned his phone around, showing her a video. Claire's voice, "He is my goldmine." Trauma cells. The reaction spread like a wave. Whispers turned into murmurs. Murmurs into outright shock. I watched Claire pause. For the first time on stage, she blinked in confusion. A ripple of alarm ran through her as she glanced around. "Is something wrong?" she asked, off script. Someone stood up and called out, "Is this true?" Another voice, "How could you say those things?" Claire's mic crackled. I do not know what." Then the second video began circulating. Her rehearsing fake tears. Her mocking my breakdowns. Her telling Miles she could say anything because the audience would eat it up. I stood up. Not because I needed to say anything. Because I wanted her to see me. Her eyes met mine across the crowd. And in that moment, everything fell apart. Her speech collapsed mid-sentence. The silence in the room was deafening. And the woman who built her empire on my suffering had just been exposed in front of the world. Claire staggered back from the podium like the floor had cracked beneath her. She scanned the audience, eyes darting left to right, trying to anchor herself in the chaos. Phones were still up, some recording her, some replaying the leaks, others live tweeting the disaster in real time. I watched her lips move, but the mic picked up nothing now. Her voice was swallowed by the weight of her own exposure. The event coordinator approached the stage, whispering something in Claire's ear. She shook her head violently. Then she tried speaking again, louder this time. This is fake," she said into the mic, breath shaking. "It's AI, or doctored. Someone is trying to ruin." The screen behind her flickered. And then, my face appeared on it. A still from one of our wedding photos. Claire and me, smiling beneath a backyard arch, her hand on my chest, my medals barely visible beneath my suit. Then it cut to her voice. "Jack doesn't even know he's my content goldmine." The audience froze. The organizers did not shut it off. Someone was helping me. Claire turned, seeing the screen behind her. And I will never forget the look on her face, because it was not just fear. It was recognition. She finally realized who had done this, and that I had done it quietly, with evidence, with precision, and with everything she never expected from me, control. She dropped the mic, literally, and ran off stage. The hotel was silent when we returned. Claire walked ahead of me like a ghost in heels, fumbling to unlock the suite door with trembling hands. Once inside, she spun around. "What the hell did you do, Jack?" Her voice cracked like glass. I closed the door behind me. I told the truth. "You humiliated me. On a live stage. You ambushed me." I stepped closer. Calm. Collected. You exploited me for years. You made a brand off my trauma. You built a career off lies. All I did was show people the unedited version. Claire's eyes flared. You do not understand what I was trying to do. I help people, Jack. I inspire. No, I said sharply. You manipulate. You perform. And you are finally paying the price. She threw her phone across the room. It smashed against the wall. I am ruined, she whispered, chest heaving. I walked to the minibar, poured water, and took a long drink before speaking again. You were always going to ruin yourself. I just made sure you did not drag me down with you. Claire sat on the edge of the bed, hands in her hair. I can fix this, she muttered. I just need a statement. Maybe I say I was hacked. Or I was under pressure. Miles, yes, I will blame Miles. I let her spiral. She still believed she could spin the narrative. But the damage was already done. Her inbox was flooding. Sponsors dropping. Her agent had called twice, once to scream, once to quit. The house of lies was caving in. And for the first time in years, I felt light. The next morning, Claire was gone. No note. No calls. No shoes by the door. Just a single unread message blinking on my phone. Unknown number. Tell your wife not to contact me. I warned her what would happen if this got messy. I'm not going down with her. Miles. Coward. I called Ethan. Track that number. Already on it, he said. And get this, Miles just emptied his investment fund. Transferred everything to an offshore holding firm registered under a dummy shell. He's bailing. Claire had not just lost her career. She had lost her lifeline. I returned to the hotel suite and found Claire sitting on the floor, mascara streaked down her face, hair unkempt, staring at the TV as headlines scrolled beneath a talking head. Claire Callahan exposed. Leaked audio shocks mental health community. She looked at me like I was a stranger. You ruined me, she whispered. I crouched down, level with her. No, you did that. I just let the world see what you really are. She looked away. There was no fight left in her voice. Just static. Later that day, I filed for divorce. No confrontation. No drama. Just documents served to her hotel room by a professional. And for the first time in years, I stepped into the sun and did not feel like a shadow. I felt like a man taking his name back. Claire's former producer, Aileen Roth, called me 2 days after the event. I did not expect it. We had never spoken directly before. Jack, she said, her voice sharp, professional. I do not normally get involved in the lives of my clients' spouses, but you need to know what she was planning next. I leaned against the kitchen counter, still jet-lagged from San Diego, eyes fixed on the divorce packet sitting unopened on the table. Aileen continued. Claire pitched a Netflix-style limited series. About your marriage. About you. She said she was going to fictionalize it, use a different name, make it raw and emotional. Her words, not mine. I was silent. She already had an outline, Aileen added. 6 episodes. Heavy on dramatization. She told me the PTSD scenes would make viewers cry blood. She was going to include the affair but flip it, make you the cheater. Said the emotional payoff would be bigger. I blinked hard, jaw locked. She called it wounded hearts. I walked the minute I saw the pitch doc. She paused. Look, I do not know what you plan to do next, but if you ever want to make your side of the story known, I have files. Memos. Calls she recorded without your consent. I kept them, just in case. Why? I asked. Because I have worked with liars. But Claire? Claire weaponized love. That is a different kind of evil. I thanked her. Hung up. And for a moment, I just stood there. No rage. No grief. Just that sharp, clean edge of truth. She had not just taken my story. She had been preparing to rewrite it, again. Only now, the pen was out of her hands. The next morning, I met Ethan in a corner booth at a diner 2 towns over. He had a folder with him, thick, unmarked. She had lawyers drafting contracts, he said. Ghostwritten books. A podcast series. Everything under her name. But your story was the product. I flipped through the pages. Marketing timelines. Monetization charts. Even a mock book cover. When he could not speak, One Woman's Battle to Bring Her Soldier Home by Claire Callahan. I could not believe what I was holding. She had built a commercial strategy out of my silence. This is what she was really working toward, Ethan said. The TED Talk? The San Diego speech? That was just launch fuel. I turned the page and stopped. An email from her to Miles. Once this hits, I'm leaving Jack. He served his purpose. I'll say it was mutual. That we drifted. Nothing messy. Miles had replied. Good. You'll be untouchable. I leaned back slowly, breathing through my nose. Burn it, I said. You sure? Ethan asked. Yes. I already exposed her lies. I do not need her failures archived in my life anymore. He nodded. What now? I looked outside the diner window. Sunlight broke through the trees. Clean. Quiet. Now, I said, I start over. The media storm that followed Claire's fall was merciless. Major sponsors dropped her within 24 hours. Her publicist released a no comment. Her literary agent issued a statement that they were reviewing allegations and stepping back from all projects indefinitely. But what caught me off guard was the public. Social media exploded. Clips of her stage performances went viral, but not the way she had dreamed. Instead of sympathy, she became the face of manipulation. The comments were brutal. How dare she exploit PTSD for clicks? This is worse than lying. It's emotional theft. As a veteran's daughter, this makes me sick. Her tears are as fake as her compassion. Even old allies turned away. A nonprofit she used to tour with released a statement cutting all ties. A former co-speaker wrote an op-ed titled, When Advocacy Becomes Exploitation. Claire tried to respond once. A shaky, self-recorded video where she cried on her kitchen floor, saying she was overwhelmed, misunderstood, and pressured to perform. The top comment read, You're not the victim, Claire. You just finally got caught. And just like that, the empire she built on empathy collapsed under the weight of the truth. 3 weeks after Claire vanished from the media, I received a manila envelope. No return address. Just my name, handwritten in thin, looping strokes. Inside were 2 documents. The first was a legal brief, a copy of a lawsuit Claire had filed. Defamation. Against me. I read every line twice. She was accusing me of falsifying evidence, of orchestrating a smear campaign. She claimed the audio recordings were deepfakes, that I hacked her private accounts, released staged rehearsal footage without context, and incited a mob. My jaw tightened as I scanned the signature at the bottom. Claire Callahan. Still trying to flip the script. The second document hit harder. A confidential medical form. A paternity test. Claire had secretly submitted DNA samples, mine, hers, and our son's. And according to this report, he was not mine. I sat there, silent. The world outside continued. Birds chirped. A car honked in the distance. But inside me, everything stopped. I had raised that boy since he was in diapers. Taught him how to ride a bike. Held his hand when he broke his wrist. Read him bedtime stories from my old army notebooks. And Claire, she knew. She had known the entire time. This was not just betrayal anymore. This was nuclear. I did not cry. Not that night. Not even when I called Ethan and told him what had happened. She sent you the results? He asked, stunned. Like it was a grenade, I said. And she pulled the pin. Ethan exhaled slowly. This is not about winning anymore, is it? No, I said quietly. This is about surviving. That night, I walked into my son's room. He was asleep, mouth open, one hand draped over a comic book. A kid like any other. Innocent. Unaware. I sat at the edge of the bed, gently brushed hair from his forehead. You are still mine, I whispered. And I meant it. Blood might tie us to the past. But love, real love, ties us to the present. Claire had tried to erase me from every part of my life. My trauma. My truth. My family. But I was still here. And I was not letting go. The next morning, I called my attorney. I want full custody, I said. We'll need evidence she's unfit, she replied. I have it, I said. Because when you destroy a man, and he survives, he does not rebuild the same. He becomes something else entirely. Claire returned to the public eye like a ghost wearing designer sunglasses. She showed up on a low-tier talk show, the kind that thrived on scandal and apology arcs. Her makeup was heavy, her tone controlled. She looked rehearsed, but not composed. I was the victim of digital manipulation, she said, facing the camera. Clips of me were twisted, taken out of context. And yes, I made mistakes. But I was also under pressure. Everyone wanted me to be a voice, a figure. I was drowning. The host nodded solemnly. Claire continued, tears welling. I lost my son, my career, my name. And now, the man I loved is trying to erase me. It was a performance. I recognized it instantly. Same tier cadence, same voice drop at the emotional moment. But this time, it did not work. The comment section tore her apart in real time. She weaponized motherhood now? You do not lose a son by accident. If this is acting, she needs an Oscar. If it is real, she needs help. And then the video leaked. The uncut version of her rehearsals with timestamps. Her telling Miles exactly when to fake cry for maximum sympathy. The show pulled the segment. And Claire's second attempt at redemption died before it ever had a chance to breathe. The first day in court was quiet. Too quiet. Claire arrived flanked by two attorneys, neither of whom looked confident. She wore a dark gray suit, her hair down, no makeup. The image was carefully crafted. She was not here as a public figure. She was here as a victim. I sat across the aisle. No entourage. No statement. Just the truth. The judge entered, and the hearing began. It was supposed to be about custody, about our son. But Claire's team tried to hijack it immediately. Your Honor, her lead attorney said, before we proceed with any family-related matters, we are filing a motion for defamation and unlawful surveillance. He handed the judge a stack of documents. Claire did not look at me once, but I did not flinch. My lawyer stood. Your Honor, we will be filing for immediate dismissal of those claims. We have timestamps, metadata, consent logs, and multiple witnesses ready to testify. What my client leaked was truth, not fabrication. The judge frowned. I will review all evidence and issue a ruling within 72 hours. Until then, all secondary motions are frozen. We proceed with the custody hearing. Claire's attorney tried to push back, but the judge cut him off with a hand gesture. In my courtroom, he said, we do not confuse embarrassment with injustice. I looked over. Claire's fingers twitched in her lap. That was the first crack, and there were many more to come. Later that week, I picked up my son from school. He sat in the back seat, backpack slouched beside him, eyes fixed out the window. Quiet. You okay? I asked. He nodded. Yeah. A beat passed. Then he said, without turning to me, Mom told me you were mad at her because she told people you were sick. My hands tightened on the wheel. She said you were being dramatic. I pulled into the driveway, turned off the engine, and faced him fully. You want to know the truth? He looked up at me, eyes wide but calm. I did not sugarcoat it. She used things I told her in private. She told stories about me, things I was not ready to share. And she made money off of them. That is why I am mad. Not because I am sick, but because she lied. He was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded once. I thought so, he said. She said you were wrong, but she cried weird when she said it. Like acting crying. I choked back something in my throat. He reached out and grabbed my hand. I like living with you better. Those 6 words were worth more than any courtroom win. That night, as he slept, I called my lawyer. Pushed for full custody. No compromise. 3 days later, we were back in court. This time, Claire looked thinner. Her suit was wrinkled. Her posture slumped. She barely spoke. The judge read from his notes slowly, deliberately. I have reviewed all relevant footage, evidence, and testimony. The plaintiff's claims of defamation lack substance. The digital evidence submitted is verifiable and legally obtained. The request for damages is denied. Claire's attorney whispered something, but she did not respond. The judge continued. As for custody, based on school records, witness statements, and the child's expressed preference in private interview, full legal and physical custody will be awarded to the father, Jack Callahan. I exhaled slowly. Claire's mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. The gavel came down. This court is adjourned. I stood, nodded to the judge, collected my paperwork. Claire did not move. As I walked past her, I paused. She finally looked up at me. Her eyes were hollow. But mine? Mine were steady. You were right, I said quietly. You are a storyteller. But this chapter is over. And I walked out. Not broken. Not bitter. Just free. The next morning, I opened my inbox and found something unexpected. A request from Frontline Weekly, a national publication known for real investigative journalism. Not gossip. Not viral nonsense. The subject line read, "Request for interview. We want the truth." I opened the email. Mr. Callahan, I have reviewed the audio clips, the court filings, and the final ruling. You have been misrepresented by nearly every outlet who first covered your ex-wife's rise. We would like to run a story, your story, authored with full transparency. You choose the boundaries. You decide what is on record. You deserve to be heard. Hannah K. Graves, Senior Features Editor. I stared at the screen. This was not revenge. This was something bigger. It was reclamation. I called her the next day. Her voice was professional but kind. Mr. Callahan, I want to start by saying, this will not be a puff piece. I do not care about the drama. I care about truth. And I believe the public needs to hear yours. I met with her 2 days later in a quiet cafe. No cameras. Just a recorder, a notepad, and a woman who actually listened. For 4 hours I spoke. Not just about Claire. About the war. The nights after. The guilt. The silence. The real recovery. At one point, Hannah leaned in and asked, "Why did you stay quiet for so long?" I paused. Because she spoke louder. And I thought silence was safer than being called a liar. She wrote that down, then looked me in the eye. Not anymore. When the article dropped, it went viral in less than 24 hours. The headline hit like a thunderclap across the internet. The man behind the lie. How Claire Callahan stole her husband's war and sold it as her story. It was raw, honest, powerful, and most importantly, real. She included snippets of court transcripts, redacted documents, and a timeline of the emotional exploitation I had endured. No sensationalism, just facts. The opening paragraph read, Jack Callahan did not just survive war overseas. He survived a war inside his own home, one built on betrayal, staged tears, and the commodification of pain. Veterans groups began reaching out. Emails from strangers poured in, men and women who had lived through similar gaslighting, who thanked me for giving them the courage to speak. One message stood out. I never talked about my trauma because I thought nobody would believe me. Reading your story made me realize I am not invisible. That one sentence broke me more than any of Claire's betrayals. Because for the first time, I was not alone. And I was not just the guy whose wife lied. I was someone others now looked to and said, he made it out. It started simple. A mic, a laptop, a borrowed soundboard from Ethan's office. I sat in my living room, staring at a blinking red light on a cheap recorder. Then I spoke. Welcome to Own Your War. This is Jack Callahan. If you are listening to this, you probably have a story that never made it past your own silence. I paused, took a breath, and continued. This is not about blaming others. This is not about revenge. This is about truth. Your truth. My truth. The things we were never allowed to say because someone louder said them for us. I uploaded the first episode and let it go. No marketing. No sponsor. Just truth out in the world. Within a week, I had thousands of downloads. Then tens of thousands. Emails poured in. DMs. Comments from military spouses, abuse survivors, mental health professionals. One guy from Montana sent a voicemail clip I will never forget. Brother, I have not slept through the night in 7 years. But hearing you say you are not broken, you are healing, that hit different. And I realized maybe my story did not end when Claire's did. Maybe it was just beginning, not as a character in her fiction, but as the author of my own. 2 months of silence. Claire had vanished from every platform. No new appearances, no interviews, no press releases. But then as she resurfaced, not in a courtroom, not on television, in a memoir, self-published, rushed, unedited, titled in bold white letters against a black cover. Silenced, the story you never heard. It dropped like a stone in the indie nonfiction category, but the buzz came anyway. Not because of readers, because of what was inside. She framed it as a corrective narrative. Her version. She spun every truth into manipulation, painted herself as the misunderstood martyr, and accused me, publicly, of emotional warfare. Pages claimed I had weaponized trauma, that I had used PTSD to gaslight her, that I had carefully crafted the fall of her career with strategic cruelty. One passage burned in my mind. Jack did not just want me gone. He wanted to erase me. She had not written an apology. She had written a rebuttal. And buried deep in the appendix? Photos, personal ones, of me, of our son, of my journals, blurred but recognizable, things she had no right to use. I forwarded it to my attorney. "Do we sue?" she asked. I stared at the screen. "No," I said. "We bury it." Because the real punishment was being ignored. 3 weeks later, Claire asked to meet. Not through her lawyer, not through her PR rep. A handwritten letter, left at my office. "Jack, just once. Please. No cameras, no microphones, no war. Just a talk." "Claire," I agreed. Not for her. For closure. We met at a neutral cafe, far from town. I arrived first. She showed up late, pale, smaller somehow. She slid into the seat across from me. For a while, she said nothing. Then finally, I lost everything. I nodded once. "So did I. Years ago. You just did not notice." She looked at me like she was searching for a piece of the man she once knew. "I was scared," she whispered, "of fading out, of not matching. You came home with battle scars and people cared. I wanted to feel important too." I said nothing, because truth does not need to shout. "I still love our son," she added. "You love the story of him," I replied. "But you never earned the title of mother." "Not really." Her eyes welled. She reached out across the table. I leaned back. "This chapter is closed, Claire." And I left. I did not look back. Her book disappeared within weeks, pulled by online retailers after complaints. 2 lawsuits were filed, one from a journalist she name-dropped, the other from a veteran's widow whose story she had partially copied. Both cases went public. Claire's name stopped trending, and when it did appear, it was in footnotes. In What Not to Do, lectures on ethics and storytelling. The mask was gone, and what remained behind it? Just silence. Meanwhile, Own Your War hit its first million downloads. I was invited to speak, not about trauma, but about recovery. I declined the big stage conferences. Instead, I partnered with small groups, vets, schools, support networks. I sat in circles, not under spotlights. People told me their stories, and I listened, not because I had answers, but because I finally understood the power of being heard. One night, I checked the podcast inbox. Among the usual thank you notes and outreach requests was a message with no subject line, just a single audio file attached. I hit play. The voice was quiet. A young man. Early 20s, maybe. I was going to end it. "Last week, I wrote the note. Had the pills lined up. But I listened to your story. The part where you said, if your pain has a pulse, it means you're still here. I do not know why that hit me, but it did. I'm still here, Jack. Thank you." I sat in the dark for a long time after that. Not crying, just breathing. Because for the first time in years, it felt good to just breathe. A few weeks later, I received an email from a studio executive in Los Angeles. The subject line stopped me cold. "We want to tell your story, the real one." Inside was a polished, respectful pitch. They had read the Frontline Weekly article, listened to every episode of the podcast, and wanted to option the rights for a limited series. Their promise? creative control, authenticity, no dramatization without approval. I stared at the screen for a long time. This was the offer Claire had once dreamed of. The platform she had chased with every fabricated tear, every twisted anecdote. But now, they were offering it to me. I forwarded the email to Ethan. His reply came fast. "You earned this. Just make sure it is told your way." I responded to the studio with one sentence. "Only if I narrate it." They agreed within the hour. Claire's name popped up one last time months after the custody case closed. A short clip circulated from a podcast nobody followed. She had appeared under a pseudonym, claiming to be a survivor of digital mob culture. The host introduced her as Sarah, but her voice was the same. The clip barely reached 1,000 views before it was flagged and removed. I did not report it. The internet did it for me. No more sympathy. No more audience. She was no longer infamous. She was irrelevant. And that, for someone like Claire, was the deepest cut of all. She had become what she feared most, unseen. It happened slowly. Not like in movies, where people crash into each other during a storm and fall into instant passion. This was quieter, grounded. I met her at a veterans' mental health event. Dr. Mia Langston, former Navy psychologist. Widowed. No kids. I was like she had seen war and still believed in peace. We spoke after I gave a talk. She asked thoughtful questions. Listened, not as a fan, not as a therapist, just as a person who understood. We met for coffee. Then again. Then again. No rushing. No performing. Just two people sharing silence without needing to fill it. On our fourth meeting, she said something I will never forget. "You do not have to earn the right to be understood, Jack. Sometimes, just being is enough." And for once, I believed her. It was a small gathering. Just a room of veterans, survivors, counselors. No stage. No cameras. I stood at the front, microphone in hand, wearing jeans and a plain hoodie. "I used to think healing was about finding a way back to who I was," I said. "But that version of me does not exist anymore. And maybe that is okay. Because pain does not mean you're broken. It means you survived something that tried to break you and failed." Someone in the back wiped their eyes. I paused, then smiled. I am not the man my ex-wife described. I am not a broken soldier. I am not a victim. I am just Jack, still standing, still here. And I am finally telling my own story. The room was silent. Then came the applause. Not loud, not dramatic, but real. And that was all I had ever needed. One crisp morning, I opened a letter postmarked from Billings, Montana. No return name. Inside was a folded page in careful handwriting. "Mr. Callahan, my name is Franklin Ross. You do not know me, but I think my son does. I found your podcast on his phone after he was discharged from the psych ward. He told me it was the only voice that sounded like it had been there, that it felt like you were not telling him what to do, just showing him he was not alone. He is alive today because of that episode. Thank you. You do not know what you have done for our family." Franklin, I held the letter for a long time. There had been a time I believed my voice did not matter. That silence was strength. That pain made me defective. But here it was, proof that what nearly broke me had built something in someone else. That afternoon, I framed the letter. It hangs now above my recording setup, right where I can see it every time I hit record. Not as a trophy, but as a reminder. My story did not just survive. It served. I had not seen Claire in person since the courtroom. But one afternoon, months later, I received an envelope from her attorney. No lawsuit. No statement. Just a handwritten card with no greeting. "You were right. I lied. Not just to them. To myself. I wanted to matter. And I destroyed everything trying to make that happen. You will never forgive me. I would not either. But for what it is worth, I am sorry." There was no signature. Just the name Claire typed at the bottom. I sat down with it in my hand. Not angry. Not shaken. Just still. Because that was the first time she had spoken without performing. There was no media behind it. No manipulation. Just ink on paper. A quiet apology. I did not respond. Not because I hated her. but because some chapters are not meant to be reopened, especially when the ending finally made sense. The sky was pale orange when I reached the shore. I brought my son here once a month now, just the two of us. Fishing poles. Sandwiches. No agenda. He was 12 now. Taller. Eyes steady. He had questions. Sometimes hard ones. Why did Mom lie? Why did you not stop her sooner? Why did people believe her? I answered each with honesty, even when the truth stung. Because he deserved that. Because I had learned that protection is not silence. It is honesty wrapped in safety. That morning, as we packed up to leave, he looked at me and said, "I do not care what anyone says. You are the strongest person I know." I laughed. "You barely know any people." He shrugged. Still true. We drove home with the windows down and the music low. I caught him watching me in the rearview mirror once. He smiled. And I knew, no matter what came next, I had done one thing right. I had broken the cycle. I stood backstage at a small podcasting summit. Not glamorous. Not flashy. Just community. Mia was in the front row. Our son beside her. I had spoken here last year, but this time, it felt different. This time, they asked me to close the entire event. I stepped up to the mic and smiled. "This story started with betrayal," I said. "With silence. With pain I did not know how to carry. But pain does not own you unless you hand it the pen." I held up the framed letter from Franklin Ross. "This is the reason I kept talking. Not because I needed to be heard, but because someone needed to feel less alone." I paused. The room was silent. Then I looked straight ahead. "My name is Jack Callahan. I am not the man she said I was. I am not the trauma I survived. I am not a victim. I am not a brand. I am just a man." And this time, I smiled. The script is mine now. Applause rose around me. But the sound I heard most clearly was peace. There is a room in the city hospital downtown. Not a ward. Not an emergency bay. Just a plain space with 2 chairs, 1 window, and no mirrors. They call it the Veterans Room. It is where people go to talk when talking is the only thing left. No cameras. No forms. Just voices and a place to sit without being judged. They invited me to visit, not as a guest, but as a listener. The first man I met was 62. Lost 2 sons. One to war. One to suicide. He said my voice helped him sit still again. The second was 19. Discharged early. Shame in his eyes. He said he never knew how to tell his parents that therapy did more for him than boot camp. And then, a woman sat down. Mid-30s. Navy medic. She stared at me for a full minute before saying anything. "You are the reason I wrote my first journal page." That hit different. Because I remembered what it was like to have too many thoughts and nowhere to put them. I did not talk much that day. I just sat, listened, and realized something. My story had opened a door I never knew needed opening. Not for me. For us. It was strange how often I forgot her now. Claire. Her name used to echo in every room I entered. Her voice used to haunt my sleep. I used to flinch at her memory the way soldiers flinch at backfiring engines. No, she was just quiet. Not gone, but no longer powerful. Sometimes I saw glimpses of her in the world, like when someone fake cried in an interview, or when a healing coach told a war story they never lived. And I would remember, but I did not carry anger anymore. Because carrying it meant keeping her. And I had spent too many years doing that. One evening, I scrolled through my podcast reviews and saw something strange. A comment, buried in hundreds. Just 5 words. "I finally understand. Thank you." No profile picture. No name. But I knew. Some part of me knew it was her. And that was okay. Because even ghosts deserve closure. At the back of my closet, there is a small wooden box. It holds everything I used to hide from. My Bronze Star. My old unit patches. A letter from the battlefield chaplain I never opened. And Claire's wedding ring. I had kept it, not because I wanted to remember, but because I needed to finish the story properly. One night, I took the box outside. My son helped me build a fire pit behind the house last fall. That night, I lit it alone. One by one, I pulled out the pieces. Held them. Honored them. and then let them go. Not out of hate, out of completion. When the ring hit the flames, it did not hiss. It did not scream. It just disappeared. And I sat there, warm in the firelight, feeling something I had not felt in a very long time. Weightless, not empty, just done. The TED stage looked different this time. Not because of the lights, or the crowd, or the pressure, but because I was different. No longer a footnote in someone else's performance. No longer a background character in my own trauma. I stood center stage. The screen behind me was blank. No slideshow. No promo graphic. Just me and a mic. I started with a single sentence. My story was never supposed to be entertainment. Silence. Then I leaned forward. But when someone stole it and sold it, I almost lost my voice forever. And I would have, if I had not realized something. I paused. The moment someone weaponizes your pain, they make you believe silence is your only shield. But silence is just a cage. I looked down at the first row, at Mia, at my son, at the quiet nods from strangers who had followed the journey since it began. I told them everything. Not with tears. Not with drama. With calm. About Claire. About the manipulation. About the betrayal, the courtroom, the podcast, the healing. But more than that, I told them how I came back. Not in a grand, heroic burst, but in moments. The first deep breath after a panic attack. The way my son said, "I trust you." The sound of my own voice, no longer shaking. I ended with this. I used to believe my story had been stolen. But the truth is, it had never been told properly. Until now. And then I walked off stage. No applause. Not right away. Just a heavy silence. The kind that says, "We heard you." And that was enough. The house is quiet now. Not the silence of emptiness. The peace of something settled. My son is asleep down the hall, wrapped in a blanket his grandma knitted. Mia is in the kitchen, laughing softly with a friend on the phone. Her laughter never feels staged. I sit on the porch, coffee in hand, watching the wind move through the trees. No echoes of Claire. No flashbacks. No rehearsed apologies. Just life. I built this ending. Not out of revenge. Out of reclamation. And if you have made it this far, listening or watching or reading, then I have one question for you. Who owns your story? Not your past. Not your pain. Not the people who used you. You. You own it. You always have. And now, maybe it is time to tell it. Let me know where you are watching from in the comments. Whether it is from New York or New Delhi, I want to hear from you. If this story hit you deep, leave a like. Subscribe so you never miss the next thriller, revenge, or truth that hits too hard story. And most importantly, take care of your mind like you take care of your heart. I will see you in the next one. Until then, own your war. Live your truth. Story ends.